closer by having more youth-led initiatives. This is a very unique opportunity for youth to develop leadership, teamwork, management skills, while also contributing to the local community and having a youth voice.
Some ideas we plan to initiate are seasonal events, community-involved art projects, charity funds like book drives or bake sales, providing volunteers for other local events, a time capsule, and lots of other interesting ideas we have from some of our other members of the group. We currently have an upcoming Christmas event planned to take place here at the Village Hall around mid-December. We will host activities such as decorating gingerbread cookies, making Christmas crafts, playing games, and to finish it all off by watching a movie at the end.
We plan on actualizing these activities and initiatives by actively recruiting new members, having meetings to plan together regularly, probably on a monthly basis, and then assigning individual tasks to do. We will also survey the Anmore residents to see what people like to see most, and then advertise through media and posters. However, we do recognize that sustainability to our group could be a big challenge, as it requires many outgoing members of youth and, of course, funding. We hope to overcome these challenges by finding ways to engage and reach out to more younger youth to take over when we leave, when we graduate, which is in 2 years, and then maybe advertise in elementary school and maybe the middle school or even to younger youth in our high school. And then we will also have meaningful and unique fundraisers asking for an optional donation entry to some events or activities and potentially sponsorships to funding.
There are a few things that we are looking for with support from the village as well. This includes t-shirts with our youth group logo so we can be instantly recognized by parents and other community members, village staff help sharing information about our events and activities through village websites and emails, and we may apply for village grants to help subsidize our activities. That wraps up our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to share.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I'll open up to council. Any questions? Councillor Cryer.
I don't really have a question. I just want to say thank you for being here. We've had a few conversations and I'm inspired by your enthusiasm and your planning. It was a very good presentation. You think of everything, and I'm very excited to have the youth group formally recognized if that's the decision we make.
Councillor Weberink.
Sorry, just one quick question. How many are in the youth group, approximately?
So far, we have a few members we recruited from online forums. We have 6 to 8, and Billy and I, we are the main 2 leaders of this group so far. And after this council meeting, after we can get approval, hopefully, we are planning to send out more advertisement on like a larger scale, because we weren't really able to do that before because of a lot of legal issues. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good. So I'm just looking at your delegation request form. So you're presenting to provide information, which was what you did. Request funding. Now I believe, Ms. Elrick, there is funding around for the youth. Is there? Or?
So currently, the youth group, and that is in the past few years, just been focused on the bingo activities. Mostly has a $1,000 budget allocated, and they purchase prizes and candy and such for the bingo. We also have our community grant program that's open for applicants at the end of December, and certainly this group could apply for resources through that as well. And then additionally, should council wish to consider the request, we would seek a recommendation and resolution to identify this as a community volunteer group for the basis of our facility rental policy.
Good. So to request letter support, that would come after after we voted on them becoming an entity, so to speak? I'm just looking at what their application was. They're asking for a letter of support.
I think it might help to ask the group what letters of support they're seeking. What do they want support for?
Yeah.
We were under the impression that we had to receive official community volunteer group status and be recognized by council so that we were able to use the facility free of charge, of course, that's one of the goals. And then also to apply for some of the funding that's available through the village for community groups or user groups.
Michelle, do you have,
Yeah,
do you
I
have
think-
something that we could read out for council to consider?
Yeah, the recommendation is that council recognize the Anmore Youth Group as a community volunteer group.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded, any discussion? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Against? Carried unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you all for your time this evening. We hope you will, well, our request is approved now. So thank you very much once again. Have a great rest of your evening.
Good, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the Ugly Sweater Dash 5K. Jordan Birch to request the use of Spirit Park and Village Hub facilities. Mr. Birch, how many years has this been now? Just might I ask?
This is 23. So 11 for the sweater dash and 23 for the original party. So I was in grade 12, one year older than these gentlemen when we started this phenomenon. So volunteering matters. So I just wanted to say it's an honor to come up after these gents because that's where it all started, just doing something that you believe in. So if I may, Mayor, Council, staff, thank you for the time. As you recall, in 2022, I was here in front of Council and Mr. Mayor and I talked before, Councillor Cryer, about bringing the Ugly Sweater Dash from Port Moody to Anmore. It was our 8th year at the time, and there was a lot of enthusiasm to bring a new event that would promote fitness, collaboration, community building, and a little bit of wacky and tacky fun, and we did that. 1 year later, last year, 2023, we had our second biggest year in 11 years in terms of dollars raised and in terms of participation and amount of community partners that collaborated, including cash and in-kind sponsors and volunteers. So we're got a bit of a tailwind behind us. And of course, as you remember, we also hosted one of those events in the muddy field across from us, pre-construction. We did what we had to do. And then last year we hosted the event in the elementary school parking lot on a beautiful day. So here we are. We've all been waiting for this amazing facility to be built so that we can build more community together. Of course, I just have to say before I do a bit of an ask in terms of support for this year, our 11th annual, just because it's fun, I just wanted to say this one piece. So raid your closet or a local thrift shop for the tackiest, itchiest, ugly Christmas sweater you can find and pair it with your spandex. Get ready for the most fun you can have with your knitwear on. The Ugly Dash invites you to celebrate the holidays by participating in an untimed, fun, family-friendly run, walk, roll, or stroll, and finish off by warming up by the fire with hot chocolate, milk, and cookies, and maybe even a dilly bar. We have trophies for ugliest sweater, best group costume, ugliest kid sweater, and ugliest dog sweater, and more. And registration includes authentic ugly Christmas sweater toque with new colors every year, bottomless drinks, 1 adult beverage per adult registrant, a pancake breakfast complimentary, and giant Christmas inflatables and a marshaled course with volunteers from various groups, including 2 outside of Anmore Scouts groups and potentially the Anmore Youth Group, who we're talking now about collaborating to get them involved. So to make this happen, my budget for this event is just astronomically growing every year as costs in every industry rise. This is a $30,000 event. When you look at storage and Christmas inflatables, insurance, contracting staff that are professionals that come on site to make a safe event and start the event at 6 a.m. and be out of here by 1 p.m. So this is a professional event. This is not something we just do off the side of our desk. So any help we can get from the village, which I've listed here, is incredibly appreciated to reduce our bottom line. And at the end of the day, any profits or proceeds that we have, we can put it forward into making the event next year, or we can throw it back to any organization such as the PAC. Last year, we were able to buy an indoor curling set for the elementary school. And this year, we're going to be supporting them and the Beaver section of the Anmore Scouts group. So just, I've listed it out. You have a copy of it in front of you, I believe, of some of the things that we'd like support on. So I'll get to that. I did add 2 more just for discussion. So to start from the top, extended hours of the Spirit Park rental. So we'd like to be in here at least by 6 a.m. To set up. It'll be dark. We set up all the technical gear, all the canopies, etc. We'll be out of here by probably 2 or 3 o'clock is when we strike the event. We'd like access, obviously, to the exterior washrooms, but we're expecting above 400 registrants. It could be 450. I don't know. We'd cap it at 500, but we have 50 plus volunteers. So that's a lot of people, and that's the maximum that we can obviously host in this venue. That goes for parking, etc. But we really need some other washrooms. So if we can't, we would love to be able to access the basement washrooms downstairs. And respectfully, we know we have Light Spirit Park the following day, and we know the organizing crew is inside preparing for that. So we don't want to get in the way or take away from the preparation or create more work. But otherwise, we'll have to rent some washrooms. It's been done before, but again, it will help save on costs. And reduce any bottlenecks having more washrooms when you're trying to get 500 people to walk down the street. Not foreign to this ask as well as a staff letter of support so that when we get our liquor license, we don't have to fence in the area. And that kind of brings that sense of community a little bit closer, a little tighter knit where we can not segregate the people that are enjoying their beverage, and they can still be with their families and their friends. Public Works has done just an incredible job over the last 3 years. Delivering on everything that's being listed. So I don't think I need to repeat that, but boring delineators, preparing the sidewalks and the streets with salt, making sure it's safe, even walking the course with us in advance during the week of. We'd love all those elements. We'd really appreciate that. As far as parking goes, we'll be parking down at the elementary school, so booking that through the school district. But one thing that I added in here tonight was we know that field gets really muddy, so we want to stage our festival site in the lower parking lot here and leave the accessible parking spots open, special for those that have those parking needs, but otherwise keep our sort of horseshoe festival site on the concrete, just to avoid damage to the field and everyone kind of trying to get away from that. They're going to come over here anyway. Provision of firewood from the Public Works yard, that was easy last year. We just went and picked it up once we were authorized. Respecting as well, we're already advertising Light Spirit Park when we get into December, so I think the signboards will probably be used for that reason only, but if there's an opportunity to put us on the signboards, great, we'll take that. We've already put up 4x4 signs. As far as we know, they're on following the sign bylaws, so if they're not, maybe just a quick heads up from staff, and we can move them around. And of course, everybody's invited, so we do some awards at the end. I think several of the councillors and mayor have been to, I don't know, more than a handful of these while they're in Port Moody presenting awards, so we'd love to have you back. And staff, of course, maybe put a staff team in. We'd love to see you there. So, and the one thing I threw in as well was we'd love to, we usually rent 30 tables. A little bit less chairs, 32 chairs to be exact. So if there's any tables and chairs that we could borrow, that would also help reduce cost. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any comments from council? Oh, Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I love this event. It's been a lot of fun and it's grown every year, so I'm super excited that you're bringing it back. I was very happy to see the signs up today when I came into the village. I guess it's a lot of the questions are staff conversations, but I certainly would support anything that we're able to do during a busy time with the next day being Light to Park, but you have my support for sure.
Just going to pass, go ahead, Councillor Webber.
Yeah, I've attended the event and I'm supportive of it. And what I like about it is it's not just an Anmore event, it's a community event. As far as the ask, I would want to know from staff first, what all these services are going to cost us. And then at that point, I could, move towards a decision on how much we would support.
Let's put it over to staff. Ms. Elric.
Thank you. So in terms of the reduced or waived fee for Spirit Park rental, this group would fall under the organizations category, which is governments, nonprofits, school districts, strata councils. So the fee, should council wish to consider waiving it, would be a daily rental fee of $100 for Spirit Park. In terms of the access to the exterior washrooms, that would be included with the Spirit Park rental, so would not be an issue. The interior would be a bit of a different story in terms of costs. As we are having our light up event the next day, we would need to get cleaners in the evening after the Ugly Sweater event, so there would be the cost for the cleaners. And additionally, if we do open the hall, we do have a staff on call, so there would be those hard costs for that. In terms of the lower parking lot, my only concern would be with staging in the lower parking lot, that our accessible parking is actually in the upper parking lot. So if we don't have the lower part, if there's not accessible parking available, they would not be able to access the event because the accessible parking's on the upper level and you would go through the upper part of the building and elevator down. So just something to consider that, logistic wise, that you'll want to leave some space for some accessible parking in the lower lot area. In terms of the public works support, certainly public works staff, we've provided the barricades and delineators and pop-up tents in the past. In terms of the clearing and salting of sidewalks, of course that's weather dependent if we have snow events, and our staff is obviously prioritizing, traffic routes for sure. But, I think that it's reasonable that, they can kind of walk through if we're not under a snow or ice event. The signboards, as you noted, may be a bit of an issue just with the size of our signboards. It's challenging to have more than one thing. We're quite limited to the number of characters we can put on. So that may be challenging as we will have our light up event advertised, but we can certainly use our email notification to amplify your event. I don't think that would be a problem. The permission for the signs, I see that you've already put the signs up. There may be concern, I'm just waiting to hear back from staff with the sign outside the hub, just in terms of site. I know that we had a sign there before, and there were some residents along Montmurray that noted that there was some site issues, so I think I just need to have staff take a look at that to make sure that we're not impeding anybody's site, so we can get back to you on that. And then certainly, council, if would like to attend the event, I know that they have in the past. And in terms of a declaration of Ugly Christmas Sweater Day, that's certainly something council can entertain as well.
Good. Any other comments from council before we, Councillor Richardson?
Yes, just for clarification, from a staff cost point of view, I heard about maybe $500, like if they're on call and all that stuff.
Yeah, so it'd be the staff on call and the additional cleaners to come in the evening, which is probably about $100 for the clean. It would be likely under $500 in hard costs. Yeah.
And then I have a question for Mr. Birch.
Yes.
When you say you give to charity if there's excess, typically per year, how much goes to charity?
How do we choose the charity?
No, how much goes, how much cash?
Well, last year we donated $1,000 to the PAC and the PAC only. So basically, I volunteer all of my time. I contract out any of the operations. I have a part-time staff that works on this event for 4 months. And any proceeds, we barely break even on this event. Like, we're on the verge of actually not doing it next year or even this year. So cash sponsorship is extremely hard to solicit. It's a very competitive market. Anmore's small. I've approached like dozens of Anmore businesses, and not a lot of people are stepping up, which is really interesting feedback. So I knew this question was coming, and I will be very transparent and say that this event is purely to build community. When there are profits and proceeds, it will go to a good cause.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, okay. Well, again, I think I've been in this for well, at least 11 years, because I remember coming down and enjoying it in Port Moody with Mayor Stewart and Mayor Clay as well, and that. So I'm certainly supportive of it. I am a little bit concerned. So, Ms. Elrick, if we don't open the washrooms downstairs, or would we still need then staff to be on call?
No, if it was just the outdoor washrooms, we would not need on-call staff, and we would also not need additional cleaning, because we would have our regular cleaning on Friday, and then we would have a post-event clean after the village's event on Sunday.
What about all the other things then? Is there any cost associated with any of those things? I know the firewood is pretty easy to come about, but what about the tables and stuff like that?
We do have, I'd have to check with Ms. Perrin on the tables of what we have that are sort of designated for outdoor tables, because we do have newer tables too that we probably don't have for outdoor use. But I know that we do have some outdoor ones, so I could definitely get back to you on the tables and what we have available.
I'm just thinking, Jordan, what did you have for washrooms last year?
We had, let's see, porta potties, and the staff team and the volunteer team could use the school. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just, the staff expense is a concern in regards, and because we're having a function the following day,
Yeah,
which is Light Up Spirit Park, so I'm trying to think of some sort of way that we could just limit access to the building. I'm really supportive. I love the fact that people are coming from all over the Tri-Cities for this event, and they're coming to Anmore. It's something we should be very, very proud of. And the fact that, you know, we need to really build up and be able to generate some funding as well, because there's so many charities that are in such desperate need, especially at this time of the year. So I think we could maybe work with staff in regards to how to kind of maybe figure that out if there is a way. I'm wondering if the washrooms even need to be cleaned if we're having an event the following night or something like that. But I think we can maybe work that out. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I guess that from a council perspective is, should we put it to a vote? Are people in favor as it stands, or Ms. Elrick?
Thank you. Just for clarification, we would likely have to have not just the washrooms cleaned, like a sort of bit of a full sweep. There's no way to limit access to the rest of the building. We can lock this room and we can lock the boardroom, but there's no way to stop folks from coming upstairs into the lobby area, from, you know, going elsewhere in the corridors. So I just wanted to make that clear that you know, weather dependent, I think it would be preferable to have the cleaners in, but we can certainly waive that if council wants to.
You know, there's pretty clear, I would think it's pretty easy to block off at the bottom of the stairs to limit people from coming up, and some sort of chain, or even putting some tables across the side or chairs and that to limit access throughout the whole building. So, and would that be something that you guys would be able to look after and make sure that it's being respected?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to Councillor Weverink's earlier comment, I mean, this is, you know, it's kind of a double whammy here. We've got two massive events back to back, one being a first party event with the village and one being the largest, you know, recreational event that's been in this town for a long time.
Yeah.
That's been done by a resident, and this is why we built this facility. It's what I understood. That's why we voted for this, and those washrooms would help so much. We could actually put 1 or 2 volunteers down there to chaperone the area. I can tell you right now, after every sweater dash, even the party, as loopy as we got in our younger days, I picked up every piece of garbage at every venue, including the Commodore Ballroom. And so every year after the event, whether it be the day of the dash or the next day, I go around and I pick up garbage along the route or the venue. And so I have a mop at home. So if it's not clean enough, the cleaners don't do a good enough job, I'll do a better one. So.
Well, and you know, and I the thing that I've really enjoyed as well when it's been an Anmore is the amount of community participation during the actual course and people getting out and actually, you know, participating, so to speak, and offering refreshments for the hard work that's going on. So, Councillor Trowbridge. Nope, go ahead.
Jordan, I think it's a great thing and support it as well, but I'm listening to staff and it absolutely is a residence building. There's no question about that. However, in this context, does it serve your purpose if you had a couple of volunteers that kept everyone down where the washrooms are and didn't allow access up here to wander around in the lobby? Does that work?
Yeah, I'm all for that. Sorry, I wasn't clear. I went on a bit of a tangent, but we would love that opportunity, and we'd take it very seriously. And that's 2 more volunteers that we need to recruit for that. But I think we got a couple by being here tonight. So.
Yeah, well, Ms. Elric makes a very good point that there's no restricted access up here, and people coming in and out would necessitate cleaning of this whole area, etc. We could save a lot of time and cost if we kept everyone downstairs. So if you're open to participating in that, that helps.
Absolutely. Like, I guess I could have wrote it a little bit clearer, but I was really just in my mind envisioning like a partition at the bottom of the stairs. And in this case, is a new idea from us is putting a volunteer down there or 2. Yeah. But it's really just to use the washroom. I don't think people really, it's not grade 10, like people don't want to hang out in there.
Perfect.
People want to be outside.
Good.
So.
Okay. Well, with that sort of clarified, and like I said, I'm more than happy to facilitate that for this event. I'll call the question. All those in favor of, oh, sorry. Oh, do we have a motion?
There's nothing on the floor yet.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead, Ms.
I think there's just a couple outstanding things on the list here. Was representation of council at the event to participate in handout of the awards.
I'll be there.
And declaring December 7th as Ugly Christmas Sweater Day.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the recommendation would read that council approve for the 2024 Ugly Sweater Dash 5K extended hours of Spirit Park rental beginning at 6 a.m. Reduced or waived rate. I need a decision on reduced or waived.
Waived.
Waived rate for Spirit Park rental. Access to interior basement floor washrooms. Use of community hub parking lot for staging area and accessible parking. Village staff support depending on operational needs. Donation of firewood. Loan of tables and chairs, tents, barricades, and delineators. Permission to place 4x4 signs on village land designate locations. The letter of support, representation of council, and the declaration of Ugly Sweater Day.
Good. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you for the discussion about washrooms. We appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on. We have Tim Laidler Jr.
Hello, yes, Tim Laidler Jr., 2185 East Road. I'm here to ask council to consider amending some bylaws and policy in the village concerning infill. We passed an infill policy that affected my property and a few others. And the issue we wanted to focus on is the FAR, the floor area ratio. If you take the infill policy, I've distributed a handout to council there. I've just taken a snapshot of the page where the FAR breakdown is present. Point 9.20.4, it shows anything over half an acre has a FAR of 0.3 plus a bonus of 125 square meters. Between like slightly less than half an acre, you have 0.25 and a 60 square meter bonus. And then for a third acre lot, which the majority in Anmore right now, if you look at the CD zones, are coming in around that third of an acre, it's 0.25 FAR with no bonus. We're asking that council consider increasing the third of an acre FAR and above to 0.3. Justification for that is equity and consistency in council policy. I've attached in my handout two of the more recent or larger CD zone applications that also created single-family homes, which are the same as the infill. There's the Bella Terra development. You can see the FAR they have for a quarter acre approximately is 0.32. This is at 9.18.3. A third of an acre is at that 0.3 that we would be requesting infill be equated to. And then for over, it's 0.28. On the final page is the other CD zone, Cordova. And you can see that they have, for the third of an acre, 0.3 FAR as well, and then 0.28 for the larger parcels. I think one of the main reasons I think this really needs to be considered is that if you go back to the original infill, there's a sample calculation at the bottom. That sample calculation has taken an 1,800 square meter lot, which is about 200 square meters smaller than a half acre. And under that calculation, with the bonus they get, you can build a 5,500 square foot house above ground. So on a flat lot, you could build, a basement of 2,000 square feet plus this, and it sounds okay, that's a 7,500 square foot house, that's huge. Now, when you look at the third of an acre, you're restricted with no bonus to the 0.25, which comes out to about a 3,600 square foot house above ground. Now, if that's a flat lot with a full basement, you have yourself, again, a fairly large house. But once as many lots in Anmore are sloped, you pop out 1,000 square feet of your basement. And in the case of a third of an acre that has a slope and 1,000 square feet of your basement is counted towards your FAR, you're now only allowed to build 2,500 square feet above ground, which is very small for Anmore for third of a lot zonings. Some other factors to think about in Port Moody: if 80% of your basement is below grade, it's not counted towards your FAR. In Anmore, 100% of your basement that is above grade is counted, so it's very specific. These factors, I think people don't realize who are going through this process right now. Once their realtors start advertising their lots, if they're selling them or if people are trying to build on them, this math is quite complex. It was for us to get our heads around it and then to realize we're quite restricted in the size of home that can be built. We're trying to encourage rental suites for families. These are all things that you have to make decisions. Are you going to go with a 3-bedroom house, rental suite, or you make a 2-bedroom house and single floor, these sort of things. It's quite difficult to build with this much restriction, and I would ask council to move as quickly as possible to rectify this, bringing again it up for a third of an acre on infill from 0.25 to 0.3, because many of the lots and applications are under construction right now in application zoning, and we want everyone to get a chance to maximize the use of this land, because you can't go backwards once it's built.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open up for council. Have any questions or comments? Sure.
Okay, so when I looked at this, I think the original concept of infill is to allow development of the neighborhood without overbearing the neighborhood. So just from RS1, 1 acre lot, the floor area ratio is 0.25. If you maximize that out, that's a huge house. If you then do infill and whack that lot in half, so half an acre and half an acre, the floor area ratio on that previous piece is now 0.5, which is a huge amount of coverage. So my understanding is to keep balance, they've kind of kept the RS1 zoning across the whole thing at 0.25. And I think what happens if you start to bump that up, you end up with two potentially massive structures on a very tiny piece of land. So I don't think, like, you bring in CD. CD is completely different. CD is you give up 30% of your land. The floor area ratio is based evenly on all the lots. There isn't this existing structure on a big piece of it. So I don't think CD is a fair comparison. And it actually seems to me make some balance that it stays at 0.25. Now, I don't know if a 3,000 or 3,500 square foot house is small, but it feels enough for me. But you know, that's market to decide. So I'm kind of against the change.
If I can just respond, because if you actually look at the ratio for a half an acre under infill, it's up at 0.3 plus a bonus of 125 square meters. So if you have a half acre, it's actually larger than what you're arguing, right? So yeah, I agree. If you take a full acre in Anmore, you have 0.25, and if you've built your house completely on one side and left an entire half acre with frontage that's required, then you could come along and build an even larger house on that other half acre at 0.3 with a bonus. What we tried to do is maintain the character of the community by not knocking down the existing Anmore home, which sits in the middle of the lot, and carving off a third of an acre to one side, and then build a home that's reasonable on that, which was restricted at 0.25 with no bonus. And then you throw in the grade, right? So 3,500 square feet above ground, yeah, sure, that would have worked for us with a basement, but as soon as you slope it, it goes down to 2,500 square feet above ground, which is too small for a single family home on a third of an acre lot.
Okay. My wife, my 3 kids, we had 1,800 square feet on a 1/10 of an acre house or lot. So, and that was enough for all of us. So, live smaller.
Yeah. For sure. Hey, look, we're living in a 1,000 square feet condo with one child and another one on the way that's going to be living in the closet as we're trying to build our house. So, like, I understand the constraints of living in a small property. When you think of the economics of this, Anmore is now, $1.3 million to buy a third of an acre lot. The construction cost, you're a $3 million house. If you restrict the size like this, you're just disadvantaging people who are choosing to move into Anmore, more space, all the reasons you want to be here. I think it makes sense to allow for a reasonable sized house with a rental suite.
So I'm going to propose a recommendation that we ask staff to do a report on this, because there's an aspect of this where I do see the similarities between a CD zone. An infill lot pays a similar CAC, and actually in the most recent CD zone, that CAC was actually related directly to the same formula in regards to lift. I know that the Cordovados that just went in, which is going to be right next to a few 1 acre lots, as they it's a flat rate of 0.30 throughout the whole thing. I think it also bodes well with the new Bill 44 legislation of being able to build a suite of a substantial size to be able to, to offset some of your costs. So my recommendation then is just simply that we get staff to prepare a report on this comparison and bring it back to council, if that's possible. Yeah. Could I get someone to second that recommendation? Second, and I'll open it up. Councilor Weber.
Yeah, I understand your concern. I think Councillor Richardson gave a fairly accurate history. Councillor Trowbridge and I were on the task force, and it was all about maintaining the look and feel of existing areas. I mean, you've grown up here, you know the controversies that we were faced with. We really tried to find a policy that didn't impact neighborhoods, but was fair. And I remember the discussion that a third of an acre lot would be an opportunity for someone that wanted to build a small house. And as Councillor Richardson, I live in a small house that's too big for me sometimes. So, but I think, times change, things change. Bill C-44 comes along where they want us to encourage basement suites. Anmore's changing, it changes so fast. And it's not, I know everybody thinks council's changing it, but it changes. So I would be all for a staff report to look at this a little further, because we have to evolve with the needs of our residents and the wishes.
Good. Thanks. Any other comments? Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I can see all the points around the table, but I concur with Councillor Wevering, when we were on the task force that created infill, we could not have imagined a province dictating to us how we were going to develop and add suites, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the landscape, no pun intended, has changed. And I think it would be remiss of us to summarily dismiss a request like this. I think that, however, in total agreement with Mayor McEwen, it's not something we should make a snap decision on right here at the table. And I heard very clearly you don't want it to drag on and be a ball of political red tape, and I agree with that. But I do think we owe it to ourselves to have a staff report and a fulsome discussion on it. So I'm not decided on pro or con, but I'm certainly not against exploring this because I think times really have changed.
Good. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree with what's been said at the table, and I know you want a quick answer, but I don't feel like we can come to that right here, right now. But I know I'm very open to making it work, simply because it is what the province is asking, and times have definitely changed. And where 1,600 or 1,800 square feet might be a lot to some, if it's not working for you on that lot and you're being possibly at a disadvantage, it's definitely worth looking at. So
Good. Good. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. We do. I've already moved it and seconded it. I put forth the recommendation and Councillor Trowbridge seconded it. So there is a motion on the floor. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Mr. Boyd, is this something we could get back at a subsequent meeting? Okay, good. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll now move on to the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 15th, 2024. Could I get someone to approve those minutes? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Any business arising from those minutes? No. Consent agenda. Anybody wants to remove anything from the consent agenda? No? C? Okay. Is that Spanish, he said? Okay. Okay. Could I get someone to move items 7A and 7B on the consent agenda? Seconded. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. 7C, letter from Coquitlam RCMP dated October 25th regarding a notice of intention to withdraw primary ESS level 1 support via VSU. Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so I read it, and I have to say I didn't understand it. I don't know if it even really applies to us. Like, have we encountered this in the last 5 years? I guess what I'm asking is, I kind of understand the words, but I don't understand what it means to Anmore. So if that would be, I know it's just for information, but still, it'd be worthwhile to know.
Ms. Elric.
Thank you. Through the chair. So historically, RCMP has provided level 1 ESS services to the village of Anmore, Port Coquitlam, Belcarra. And what level 1 is that's a smaller scale ESS support. So as opposed to an apartment fire or something that displaced several families, this would be probably a single family house fire, something, the less than 10 kind of thing, which definitely would be more applicable to the village of Anmore than a larger ESS scale, just because of the types of housing. So what this would mean for Anmore is that the expectation would now be where RCMP and victim services would reply to those types of instances. For instance, a house fire where a family was displaced, the expectation would be that the village would now be supporting that rather than RCMP. And the challenge for the village is we currently don't have ESS in place. We don't have the capacity from a staffing or volunteer level. Several years ago in 2019, when I first joined the village, we did try to undertake some ESS training exercises with a volunteer group. At the time, I think we had less than 5 persons sign up, three of whom showed up. So this would leave us essentially in a bit of a bind in terms of ESS services, which on the other hand, we are also required to provide under the legislation, but would be unable to do so. So staff will definitely need to look at how we could meet those needs, and there may be some budgetary requirements that come out of that.
So essentially, we receive this for information, and then the expectation is staff will come back in the future with how we will support the end up of this. Is that what I heard, please?
Through the chair, yeah, we're currently this is all new and unfolding still. So they haven't cut us off cold turkey. So we're currently looking into ways that the village would be able to support this, and that would likely come with a resource request.
Good. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I'm I'm on the same page. I wanted to remove this one for the same reason. I understand the English. I didn't get the meaning, and that was helpful, but there's still a sentence where it says, will continue to provide these services until such time that a mutual agreement is made between Coquitlam, RCMP, and the village of Anmore. That implies some kind of negotiation, but the rest of the letter seems to imply no negotiation, that the decision is made. And they make a statement at the end, level 1 services, and as such, the responsibility to do so ought to fall to the cities, which is what you just explained, if I understood it correctly. So I don't understand the agreement we're making or the mutual agreement that we're making. It sounds like they're transferring the onus to us regardless.
Through the chair, I think that would be an accurate representation. When we have sought clarification, it was communicated to us that there never, although this has been practiced for them to provide this ESS service, that it has never been formalized. Therefore, it has been identified as something that they no longer have the capacity to support and are not responsible for. So therefore, we'll be transferring it over to the municipalities.
So excuse me, that being said, thank you. That being said, is there a specific set of duties that make up level 1 ESS?
Through the chair, I would say yes, that there are a specific set of duties. I would say that I am not in a position to identify exactly what those duties are, as we are currently not trained in ESS services, although RCMP has offered to provide training to both myself and Ms. Schell, but that poses capacity issues as well as resources in terms of would we be the persons expected to be responding to calls in such an instance, and we're not currently trained to do so.
Okay, that answers.
Thank you. This seems like a little bit of offloading that they want to do. I can tell you that I guess it would have been about 6 years ago, the RCMP stopped even getting the inviting Anmore and Belcarra to part of the OIC recruitment process. And so it's sad, but I do understand the financial pressures that they are under, as well as with their new contracts as well. So anyway, move receipt. Second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to 9A, zoning bylaw amendment, Coach House. Report dated November 1st, 2024 from the planner is attached. Mr. Boyd. Oh, Josh, sorry, go ahead. I have a note here saying refer to Mr. Boyd. The floor is yours if you could speak closely into the mic.
Thanks, Mayor McEwen. Okay, so tonight I'll be presenting to Council the Village of Anmore report to Council for bylaw number 687/2024 regarding zoning bylaw amendment for coach houses. So going over the agenda tonight, we'll go over purpose, a little bit of introduction to the updates, a bit of background on this, as well as discussions, including definitions, regulations on garage regulations, basement exemptions, secondary suite regulations, coach house regulations, and a bit of upkeep in the zoning districts. So the purpose tonight is to provide council with an update to the coach house zoning regulations and associated zoning bylaw update. So in June 18, 2024, regular council meeting, the council referred bylaw 687/2024 zoning amendment bylaw to the committee of the whole for further discussions. At the September 25th Committee of the Whole meeting, Committee of the Whole recommended that the list of amendments, including attachment 1 to the report, would be made for Anmore zoning bylaw number 568/2017. So what the discussions entail in regards to the zoning amendment bylaw, over the last year or so, staff have met with council, committee of the whole, and advisory planning commission just to review the zoning bylaw changes related to the coach house allowances. And so what that entails was discussions around coach house regulations and allowances with consideration to new recent amendments for Bill 44 updates, which includes secondary suites to be included in all residential zones. A list of definitions were also recommended for updates, as well as updates to garage exemptions, setback regulations for RS1 zone, and secondary suite allowances and regulations, and regulations for exemptions for garage and basements to utilize FAR for each zone. So other updates included increasing coach house allowances and sizes based on parcel size rather than per zone as well, in order to support affordable housing options for younger families and age-friendly options to help residents age in place. So a bit of the definition updates. Basement definition was updated to include average finished grade into the definition, and we'll go over what this means later on. Building definition had language so that it would not be included tents or temporary shelters within definition. Coach house also had updated language so that a coach house and a principal building cannot be subdivided under the Strata Property Act. Dwelling unit was also updated, just for clarity. And then floor area below grade, which usually regulated basement exemptions, has been deleted, where a new section has been included for basement exemptions later on. Floor area ratio was updated just to delete gross floor area, as they meant the same thing. We don't have net floor area anyways. Residential was also updated to include language to exclude emergency shelters and transitional housing. Definition for story was also included to help regulate basement and any other instances of story occurring in the bylaw. So during the discussion, there was also concerns with the definition of breezeway. So the current definition means a structural connection between accessory building and structure and a principal building. And then for the purpose of this bylaw, a breezeway does not create a single building or structure out of two buildings or structure it connects. And so some concerns with staff kind of came up with where does the definition for breezeway kind of meet the definition for addition, or in addition to a primary dwelling unit, can also be used to attach an accessory building per se to create one single structure. Additions can be, larger than 100 square feet. They could be conditioned, and so just a little bit of clarity needed to be resolved for that. So staff have proposed a new definition, means a non-conditioned structural connection between accessory building or structure and a principal building, where the horizontal width of the structure on any side is less than 3 meters wide. And then including the language still that for the purpose of this bylaw, a breezeway does not create a single building or structure out of two buildings or structure it connects. There could be alternate definitions as well, where you can increase the the length of the sides of the breezeway or the structure, as well as introduce kind of adjoining connection shares where the wall would be 50% of the total width of the exterior elevation of the principal building. And so that's just for consideration. So Part 5 general regulation updates included garage exemptions for the calculation of floor area. So introducing a sliding scale for garage exemptions based on parcel size, maintaining a 90 square meter exemption for larger parcels, and then appropriate exemptions for smaller parcels as well. And so you can just check out the table here for the sliding scale. In terms of basement exemptions, so average finished grade was included into the definition, and these are included, calculations for average finished grade are included in section 5.5, and these would help address basements on sloped lots and how that calculation exemption is applied. So other updates include 100% exemptions for stories that are less than 1.22 meters or 4 feet above average finished grade, and 0 exemption for stories that are more than 2.22 or 7 feet above average finished grade. So a formula is used for the calculation for the basement ratio for stories anywhere between 1.22 meters and 2.22 meters. So updates for Part 6, specific use regulations, also introducing a sliding scale of secondary suite floor area based on parcel size, and increasing the maximum secondary suite size to 180 square meters, or 1,900 square feet roughly. And also providing clarity to remove the possibility of secondary suites to be constructed with a breezeway to the primary residence. So updates for coach housing also included a sliding scale for coach house maximum floor area based on parcel size regardless of zone. So increase in maximum coach house size is 170 square meters for parcels that are larger than roughly an acre or larger. And then coach houses may also be constructed on parcels that are 1/3 acre or larger regardless of the zone. Basements are also not permitted within the coach house in these proposals, and then minimum of 5 meters from the principal dwelling unit would be the kind of distance for the coach house to be placed. So updates to Part 9 zoning districts or housekeeping, as well as updates to residential zones to permit coach housing in all zones with a minimum parcel size of 1,348 square meters. And then providing clarity that parcels may have up to 3 dwelling units, only 1 primary dwelling unit, 1 secondary suite, and 1 coach house. Decreasing the front yard setback to 7.6 meters in the RS1 zone to match the infill zone, and then to allow up to 2 accessory buildings in zones that permit, except for where a lot contains a coach house, where only 1 accessory building will be allowed, in addition to the coach house. So some legislative options for council. So in accordance to Local Government Act, Section 464, number 2, local governments can choose to waive a public hearing for a proposed zoning bylaw that is consistent with the official community plan. Notice of this decision to waive the public hearing, however, must be provided prior to first reading of a bylaw. So the recommendation on the table tonight is that council grant first and second reading to Anmore zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 687/2024, and that staff be directed to set a date for public hearing for Anmore zoning amendment bylaw, zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 687/2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I know, let's get the motion on the table. I think there's going to maybe a few amendments. So could I get someone to move the amendment, the motion? Moved, seconded. Open up for some questions and comments. Councillor Wevering.
I know we've kicked this around a lot. Well, I'd like to think we've done our due diligence on this. I'm okay with pretty much everything. What I'm going back on is the secondary suite. And I'm looking at this schedule based on lot size, and we've got 180 meters squared, 95 meters squared, 80 meters squared. I wonder if that's getting a little too prescriptive. You know, I mean, if you put in a 700 square foot suite in your basement, and then you rented your whole upstairs, that's your secondary suite. So I wonder if we should just, I mean, I'm more concerned about the house size. I don't know if I care how big the suite is and how big the primary part is. I think that's just gonna, you know, it's almost like we have to let the market determine that. You know, I know we want to create some smaller suites and all that, but if there's a demand for smaller suites, we will create smaller suites. People will. Not everybody wants a big suite in their basement. I think that may just work itself out organically. So I would like to see that change, and I would like to see that loosened up a bit. And I think everything else has been discussed to death. So that's the only thing I would like to see changed.
Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so with respect to breezeway, I read non-conditioned, and I thought perhaps non-conditioned should have a definition, because non-conditioned could be anything. It could be the floors, walls, windows, whatever. If it's specifically air conditioning and warmth, you know, how is that defined? I think that's a bit vague if we're trying to actually make it very specific. So that's one. I'm with Councillor Weverink on the secondary suite size. I know we kicked it around, should market decide or should we prescribe in order to get, you know, smaller suites? And I thought a lot about this since we did it. And what we're doing here is we're saying the smallest houses on the smallest lots, we're punishing the most by taking away the biggest mortgage helper they could have. And in some ways it should be the other way around, right? It's the people at the smaller houses, smaller lots that need more help, so they should have a bigger suite. So I'm concerned about that. And then supporting that is when this whole bylaw, it gives more to more people, right? More houses, lots can have carriage houses, most people can have a bigger suite, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, like it used to be you could have a 90-meter suite no matter what your house size was. So on the two smaller ones, we've gone from 90 to 80 and 90 to 65. So for the smallest ones, we punish, and for the biggest ones, we reward, and somehow that feels a bit wrong to me. So I think that should change. And then it took me a long time to work out the basement exception thing. And I understand from some discussions now that what we're trying to do is force people to bury their house. And the problem is, though, if you miss it by a centimeter, there's a huge penalty. So if you're 1.22 down, you're 100% exempt. If you're, or sorry, 1 meter down, you're 100% exempt. If you're 99 centimeters down, you're 45% exempt. And, you know, pebbles are a centimeter. So is there going to be a big fight over, are you actually 1 or are you actually 0.99? I kind of get the motivation, but it seems to me that is too sharp to go from 100% to 45% exempt on that much. Like, I don't know what it should be. I kind of understand the point, but it seems a bit, it seems it's going to be fights in the future. That's kind of my thought on that.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about the suites, but I think it's been talked about, but I'm going to talk about the breezeway. I like the clause which carried over from the old one to the new one, which is a breezeway should not determine that there's a single building unit. However, when we say that the qualification for a breezeway is unconditioned, I agree with Councillor Richardson that I know what a conditioned space is, but that it is subject to some interpretation. So I think we should clarify that. But even more troubling to me is the 9 meter by 9 meter, the sizing. If I'm reading it correctly, I could build a hallway with heaters in it and lights, and that hallway could be 9 meters wide, so 975, I guess that is, just under 10 feet. And I could make it 50 feet long, stick a building on the end of it, and it's now considered one building. I don't know if that's what we're intending, and I don't know if language can give us what we're intending, quite frankly. So I empathize with the challenge, but I think I'm struggling with a 10 by 10 room unconditioned being considered a breezeway when, like the scenario of below ground and a centimeter, you can make the room 975 by 10.1. And now it's not a breezeway, and now it can be a single building. I guess it's an easy position for me to be in, to criticize what your definition is and not provide a solution. I'm embarrassed by that, but I think it needs more thought.
Some good comments, and again, we had a wholesome discussion at the committee of the whole meeting I guess it was last month. I agree with the basement exemption, because I think if it's below grade, it really doesn't matter, and I think as Councillor Richardson said, there needs to be some sort of a sliding scale there, because if you miss that threshold and things change dramatically. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to help us trying to clarify on what exactly you're looking for. Are you looking towards a graduated scale? So if you miss it by 2%, you get, say, 98% for free. Compared to right now, it's a significant drop-off. As Councillor Richardson said, right now, the way it's written is to try and emphasize to make sure you're 4 feet below, because there's a significant penalty if you're not 4 feet below, as in you're going to miss out roughly 50-odd% here on free allowable space. So am I hearing that you'd like to see it as in, hey, if you miss it by 2 centimeters, you're actually still going to get the majority of it still.
You're going to be at 75% or whatever. And
okay, you want to up that ratio? Yeah. Okay. That's what I mean. Do you want to do it linear, or do you want a drop-off in place? Because it's easy. It's an easy amendment either way to the definition of a basement.
Doesn't matter to me. It shouldn't be a complete drop-off like that.
From what I'm hearing right now, you're looking for a linear depreciation.
So if you don't meet the 4 foot of being buried in the ground in a basement, if you're 3 foot 10 inches, then you're maybe not eligible for 100%. You're eligible for 98%.
Yeah. Okay. So you're looking for a linear depreciation. Okay, that's fine.
Right. The other thing, I'm going to look forward to when we go to the public and hear their comments regarding the size of the suites in the main house rather than the coach houses, because I do think there is going to be quite a demand that we need to diversify some of our rental stock into 1 bedrooms compared to 2 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms and den and that. So I'm looking forward to hearing that conversation when we get to public hearing. I was just also curious about where, I didn't see anything in here about the 3rd structure.
Sorry, Chair. Oh, 3rd structure?
Yeah, that we had talked about at the committee of the whole meeting.
As in the allowance of three structures on the parcel?
Yeah.
So I think it might be captured in, let's say, accessory building.
It's under 9.
Yeah, so there's accessory building and structures, so 2 are allowed under 9.1.3.
Yeah.
And then coach house would also be an additional accessory building, but not per the definition of accessory building. It would be defined under coach house. So permittance of 1 coach house in addition to an accessory building.
So previously, when we had our workshop, we talked about a building that was supposed to be non-habitable or non-conditioned, a barn or something. But again, my worry is that there's no way for us to police that. So is that still in this? Because if it's something that is, I'm not in favor of a 3rd building on top of a coach house and a principal residence.
So as defined for accessory building, it can include a barn, it can include a shed, a workshop. Accessory building definition is kind of broad, although it is not an accessory dwelling unit. So coach house is defined as an accessory dwelling unit. That's how it functions. But accessory building would not permit a dwelling unit.
I understand all that. I'm just curious, what is the dimensions of that accessory building?
So for bylaw purposes or building code purposes, for a building permit, it's 100 square feet, roughly thereabouts. Okay. Accessory building could be smaller, and we still regulate it for setbacks and other kind of regulations. But there is no minimum size or maximum size.
I'm looking more the maximum size.
Yes. 180 square meters, yeah.
180 square meters. So, Chris, can you, is that, so that's 2,000 square feet? That you could build as a third structure on your property?
So I think that's a total of 2 accessory buildings, 180 square meters.
So that's a total of 2?
Right.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I was under the impression, and looking at my notes when we did our committee of the whole meeting, that that was not the case. So I think we need to confirm that if we could.
Yeah, we'll review and look into that, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, by all means, let's confirm it, because I was understanding it to be an accessory building of 180 maximum with a dwelling unit, plus an accessory building, non-dwelling, of 180. So now you've got 2,000 square foot buildings along with the primary building. But if it's what you just stated, I'm much happier with it.
Yeah, totally fine with that. Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I thought it was you could have 3 and each of them could be 180. And I seem to recall the argument was you can have a 500 square meter house, and then the 2 ones are quite a bit smaller to that anyway. So you could have a house with a big garage and then a coach house if you wanted to, which are all separate. And it's only for 1 acre lots. So I don't see the restriction as long as you fall within the total floor area ratio of 0.25, which is the overriding precedent here, right? So I think people should build a workshop if they want to and have a carriage house, and they can be equally of the same size, or a house and a garage and a carriage house. I don't think we should be that into people's yards, as long as we control the total floor area ratio, still maintaining at 0.25.
So for clarity, on any lot, the maximum allowed FAR for everything in total is not allowed to go above 0.25 FAR. And the way that it's currently written is that you can have up to 2 accessory buildings up to a maximum of 180 square meters. So the way that we've written is to try and clarify for council that if you wanted to build a small coach house, you could, and you could also have a small barn, whatever you wanted on your property. But if you built a maximum size coach house, that would preclude you from basically building an accessory building, because you've used all your FAR for that particular piece.
But I guess we need to clarify, it's not FAR, it's lot coverage.
And so lot coverage is still the same. Lot coverage is still 0.25, I think it is.
So on 44,000 square foot lot, that's about 11,000 square feet of lot coverage. Yeah, not FAR, just so we're clear.
But don't forget, as you build, you have to comply to both of those.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify, the accessory buildings could be no more than 180 square meter total.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay. Then I'm fine. I'm looking forward to it. So any other tweaks that need to be done? Do you have everything you need before we pass this?
No. Maybe the best way to go about going forward to get to a resolution. So the recommendation on the table currently is that we provide first and second reading. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. And that we go to public hearing. However, I've heard tonight that we want to make an amendment, perhaps to section 6.3.6, secondary suite shall not have a floor area that exceeds the following. And we talked about 180 square meters or 50%, that perhaps we wanted to amend that section. That was from Councillor Richardson, I believe. 3.6. Yeah. And so that I've just been informed by my colleague here, this is also a BC building code requirement for the section, so we can't really amend this one too much. And I believe it's the 50%, correct, is the building code requirement. So in question tonight would be the 180 square meters.
As a total,
oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I thought you said the 180 meters was.
Sorry, I've just been looking at the wrong section real quick. It was in the meeting minutes previous. Let me go back to it. Okay, so, yeah, okay, so are we asking for getting rid of the sliding scale in its entirety on 6.3.6 and just leave it 180 square meters for all lots? Or are we looking for the sliding scale? Okay, so on page 35 in the agenda, section 6.3.6.
Yeah.
We have greater than 3,966 square meters, 180 square meters is allowed.
Yep.
And then it starts to decrease from there down to 95, 80, 65. I heard from Councillor Richardson tonight that perhaps that's not quite fair and that we perhaps just put it as one number for all zones.
And this is for, in essence, a basement suite.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
So basically, the question that you want some clarity on is you've heard some varying things about people standardizing the basement suites to a certain size, or if we continue with this gradient down to about, what is it, 650 square feet and that, so.
Does the 50% apply in all of them?
Correct, that's BC Building Code regulations.
Right.
And then just to add to the chair, so when you're talking about basement suites, so just for clarity, the secondary suites doesn't necessarily need to be within the basement. It doesn't have to be. It could be anywhere within the primary dwelling unit.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're making consideration for maximum size, it could be anywhere in the house.
Right. I would almost be in favor of just going with the 50%. I don't know if that's too drastic.
I'm fine with that then.
I think it makes it very free.
Yeah.
People do what they want.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we amend that to be 50% of the floor area of the principal and get rid of the table altogether.
Yep.
For 6.3, if we could do that tonight. The reason I'm going through this a little bit is so we can get to a resolution and go to first and second, so we can kind of get this rolling. And then the other section that we heard tonight was regarding basement floor area.
It essentially is that anyway, Chris, when you put in the context, the lesser of, it's essentially 50%.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the tables for resolution tonight. And then basement floor area, I've heard there's some concern about sliding scale. For tonight, I recommend we just remove this section. So that would be section 5.2.5 in its entirety right now. We will bring it back to council with a sliding scale for future. So we'll do another amendment to basement exemption for the future. We'll just exempt that for tonight. Okay. And then there was conversation regarding the breezeway. So again, I would recommend that we delete the reference to the breezeway in the definitions tonight. So that would be section 2B, that we delete that section of the bylaw tonight and we bring back that as a separate amendment as well. Yeah, and maybe just a little bit more direction and context for, I know this is an extremely difficult question to answer regarding the breezeway. Is there any kind of context you feel like you find acceptable, not acceptable? Do you care about it?
Councillor Trowbridge.
If we're deleting it for now for further discussion, are we able to email you with some ideas in an informal way, copying all the other council members so that that can factor into your...
I direct that question to a corporate officer.
You ignored me. If we are following what Mr. Boyd has said, which makes some sense, these areas that we're uncertain, we're removing them for further discussion so the rest can move ahead. If we remove a section like breezeways, I have some thoughts on that, for example. Is it within procedural policy that because that's informal at that point, we could just send emails to Josh or to Chris? Is like that okay, or are we breaking a rule?
So procedurally, through the chair, what I'm doing is formulating a motion right now that there would be no change to section 5.2.5 and no change to the definition of breezeway. And if you wanted to move a further amendment, you could put your suggestion there in that section. or you could request a report back from staff with additional information on how to amend Breezeway.
However, staff was saying that they're not exactly clear on what we would like, so they would like some suggestions. So how do we give them suggestions?
Move an amendment with your suggestion. So an amendment to the definition of breezeway with your ideas of how you'd like that amended.
Ms. Elrick?
Thank you, through the chair. I think what you're referencing is if there's some ideas that you think of after this meeting in terms of the breezeway definition, would you be able to run those by staff? And I think, and Michelle, jump in if I'm breaking rules, I think that that would be appropriate in the sense of if there's things that comes to mind for council in addition to what staff could recommend for options for breezeway definitions, I think that that would be fine to offer those suggestions for inclusion in the report that would then come before council for deliberation. Does that help and answer your question?
Yes, so that is possible, and then it would be publicly debated at a future meeting.
Okay.
So with that direction, they're the three amendments that I heard tonight. Was there any others from council that I may have missed? So that was, just, Michelle, I don't know if you have the resolution there. You want to reread? I'm sorry.
I thought we did this beforehand.
I know.
So the recommendation is that council grant first and second reading to Anmore zoning bylaw amendment number 686/2024 as amended to remove the sliding scale from 6.3.6 secondary suites, remove changes to sections 5.2.5 and no change in the definition of breezeway, and that staff be directed to set a date for a public hearing for Anmore zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 687/2024.
So we have moved it and seconded, so now that's been amended. So I need someone to second and move the amendment.
I thought we were removing breezeway along with the other ones.
I believe that's what
we
she
have.
did.
There's already
Yeah.
a definition
Yeah.
of breezeway within our
Yeah.
zoning bylaw. So we don't need to amend it right now. It already has a definition, so we will come back.
So could I get someone to move the amendment? Moved and seconded the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. This is only on the amendment. Carries unanimously. Okay, now we're back to the initial motion, which was, if you want to reiterate it again, Mr. Boyd?
I have that for you, Your Worship.
Through the chair.
Okay.
The second part of the recommendation was that staff be directed to set a date for a public hearing for Anmore zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 687/2024.
Okay. So we've given this first and second reading with the amendment. So we're just simply doing this. I'll call the question. Or any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Deep breath. Okay. We're now on to 9B, Officer Designation and Delegation of Authority Bylaw Update, Delegation of Development Permits, report dated November 1st from Mr. Joseph.
Thanks, Mayor McEwen. Okay, so the purpose of this report is to introduce the amendment to Anmore Officer Designation and Delegation of Authority Bylaw number 615/2020 to delegate authority to grant development permits to the Chief Administrative Officer, CAO. Some background: at the October 1st, 2024 regular council meeting, council provided direction that staff draft bylaws to amend the Delegation of Authority Bylaw number 615/2020 and the Development Procedures Bylaw number 553/2016 to delegate authority to the CAO to grant development permits and minor development variance permits. So this direction represents a two-part resolution for the issuance of development permits as well as minor development variance permits. In response to council's direction regarding development permits, staff have proposed an Anmore Officer Designation and Delegation of Authority Amendment Bylaw number 702/2024 to delegate the authority to the CAO to approve and execute development permits. The procedures for accepting and processing development permit applications are already included in the Development Procedures Bylaw, and no further amendments are necessary. Staff will bring forward the requested draft bylaws for the delegation of minor DVPs, including the definition for minor DVPs, guidelines, and application processing procedures at a later date for Council's consideration. So through Section 154 of the Community Charter, Council has the authority to delegate powers to a designee, enabling them to issue and amend development permits through a bylaw. Amendment Bylaw 702 would allow the CAO to approve the watercourse protection development permit without requiring council resolution for each permit. So the development permit process relies on professional assessments from a qualified environmental professional, a QEP, to evaluate the potential impacts to fish habitat and to recommend mitigation measures. The assessment report must be also approved by the province and can take anywhere from upwards of 1 to 2 months. So in addition, 3 to 4 weeks or more is required for staff to prepare a report and bring it to council for a resolution to issue a watercourse protection development permit, which adds additional time to the overall development approval process. So by delegating authority to issue development permits, processing times could be reduced by approximately 3 to 4 weeks or more, depending on agenda schedules. And the process would still require assurances from a QEP and the confirmation from the province that the Riparian Areas Protection Regulation Act methodology is being followed. So a delegate's decision on whether to approve or deny development permit is final. However, in accordance with Section 156 of the Community Charter, an applicant retains the right to appeal a delegate's decision to refuse an application to council. So the options on the table tonight is that council grant first, second, and third reading to Anmore Officer Designation and Delegation of Authority Bylaw, Amendment Bylaw, number 702, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Could I get someone to move that? Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? See none? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now move on to new business, water protection development permit, DP 2024-01-500 Canterwood Court. Report dated November 1st, 2024. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So tonight we have a development permit as well. Just the purpose of this report is to seek council authorization for the watercourse protection development permit, DP 2024-01, allowing an addition to the existing principal dwelling and a new coach house at 500 Canterwood Court. So the Local Government Act allows municipalities to establish development permit areas, DPAs, to protect the environment. The village's official community plan designates a watercourse protection development permit area, which is outlined in Schedule F of the OCP, as well as a set of guidelines for the developments in the development permit area in Section 5.21 of the village zoning bylaws. So the village's development guidelines align with the Provincial Riparian Areas Protection Regulation Act. So in late 2023, Dreamline Construction Inc. submitted a building permit application on behalf of the owners of 500 Canterwood Court, a property that's roughly 1 acre within the RS1 zone, proposing an addition to the principal dwelling and a coach house at the southern end of the property, which you can view in Attachment 2 and Schedule A of the development permit. So this area is within the watercourse protection development permit area and requires a development permit before the building permit can be issued. So a riparian areas report prepared by qualified environmental professional, a QEP, confirms the proposed construction is outside of the Streamside Protection and Enhancement Area, the SPEA, and outlines protective measures during the development. The report was submitted to the province for review, and the village has received confirmation of the RAPR compliance. So the development permit will include conditions based on the riparian areas regulation protection report and its recommendations to ensure compliance with watercourse protection standards. So after construction, the QEP will also submit a post-development report to confirm ongoing compliance. So a notice will be filed in the land title's office after the development permit is issued, indicating that the property is subject to the permit. So the options on the table are that council approve development permit DP 2024-01 to allow the construction of an addition and a coach house at 500 Canterwood Court. Thank you.
Can I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Trowbridge.
So the addition and the coach house, I presume that includes, I haven't seen the plan, so I presume that includes 1 or more sleeping areas, or does it bedrooms?
So through the chair, the coach house would include a dwelling unit as per the definition. I'm not handling the building permit per se, the building official does, and who has conducted a review but also, identified that it's in the riparian protection area, which then essentially the methodology for protection of riparian areas is based on the foundations. No further details for the building permit is considered for the report, for the assessment report.
So my question was based more around bedrooms and how that relates to septic systems. That development is on a communal system, and if they were on a single septic system, they would have to make sure that the system is large enough to accommodate. Is there enough of an expansion factor in the communal system in Canterwood to accommodate the development?
So through the chair, I think that's kind of for the building official to kind of identify. So this would not approve a building permit. This only allows for the construction in its design and to offer mitigation measures to protect the SPIA area. The building permit stage would also verify those kind of details. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll now move on to 11B, 2965A Sunnyside Road Development Variance Permit. Report dated November 1st from our Manager of Development Services. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So the purpose of the report tonight is for Council to authorise staff to issue a notice to affected properties of Council's intent to consider development variance permit for 2965A Sunnyside Road. So a little background, staff were before Council previously with this DVP regarding this two-lot RS1 subdivision. It's currently on a 2.4 acre parcel. The existing land already contains 2 principal dwellings and is accessed via a 7.5 metre panhandle driveway from Sunnyside Road. At the July 16th regular council meeting, staff presented a report with a recommendation to council to issue a notice of council's consideration of variance permit. However, there was direction provided to staff as follows: that staff be directed to report back to council on the history of the development of the 2965A Sunnyside Road, and the staff request comment from the SVD Fire Chief on the development variance permit request. So staff have dug through our files and looked into the past development of this property, and there are a number of pieces brought up through the correspondence. So this was once upon a time part of an existing larger lot, which was subdivided over time, and it created parcels facing Anmore Creekway and Fern Drive and Sunnyside Road. This subdivision of the larger lot led to this non-conformance of frontage requirements. The property was purchased from the previous owner of the lot at the time where they had already had the 7.5 metre access provided via that piece. The 2 existing homes were then built under a building permit issued by the village. The property was subject to a preliminary layout review, so that's a subdivision application in December 2009. And so the village had reviewed it and supplied the requirements to create a subdivision. However, the subdivision was not achieved and the PLR elapsed. Staff actually directed the applicant directly to try and understand what exactly had happened, and it appears that there wasn't very much direction provided to the applicant on how to achieve the subdivision in the past. Subsequently, the applicant has tried since to restart the process back in 2016, but it appears the process did not proceed to a PLR situation. That's the correspondence that we could find back into our files. And then directly relating to the other section of the resolution, staff have communicated with Sasamat Fire Department for input regarding the parcel, and they're in favour of creating 2 parcels on this land so that there are 2 distinct civic addresses are created for the principal dwelling units. Okay, that's the discussion and for recommendation. So in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act, notice must be sent to the adjacent properties of the council's intent to consider the DVP 2024-02 at least 10 days prior to adoption of any resolution to issue the DVP. So the recommendation be that council authorise staff to issue notices of council's resolution of DVP 2024-02.
to the affected properties.
Sorry, say that again?
To the affected properties.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We have a committee of the whole meeting. So, Michelle,
So this
12A.
is a recommendation that was made at the committee of the whole meeting, just looking for council to endorse that recommendation or make any changes.
Good. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Open up for discussion. Any discussions? See none. I'll call the question. All those. Oh, okay. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Carried unanimously. Okay. Community Engagement, Culture, and Inclusion Committee, 2024 areas of focus. At the October 3rd Community Engagement, Culture, and Inclusion Committee meeting, the committee made the following recommendation to council. Do you want to speak to this, Ms. Cryer?
Thank you. Not really much to say. The recommendation pretty much tells the story. We are required by legislation to fulfill the accessibility, I don't know the exact name of it.
BC Accessibility Act.
BC Accessibility Act. And in order to do that, we are searching for grants or funding to hire someone to do it. There are grants available which cover the entire cost of the consultant, and we just would like to get moving on that. So we are, while we're not yet in compliance with the BC Accessibility Act, the mere work that we're doing to become compliant makes us fine, and they're giving everyone a little bit of leeway on this new requirement. So we're in good shape, and once we get a consultant in, we'll learn a little more.
Good. Do you want to read out the recommendation?
Sure. The recommendation would read that staff research funding opportunities and apply for grants to engage a consultant to assist with developing an accessibility plan.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved,
I wanted to do that.
seconded.
Could I get someone to move that? Second?
Any
Any
questions?
conversation?
Call the question. All those in favor?
You just
Opposed?
won't let it
Carried
go,
unanimously.
will ya?
Okay, Mayor's report. October 31st, Halloween. Big thanks to my wife, Carrie Palmer Isaacs, Susan Mukel, who's here in the room, Sabina, sorry, Kim, Trollbridge, Councillor Trollbridge, did say Susan Mukel, Dan from our Public Works, and Sean from our bylaw. And then finally, a big thank you for my partner in crime with the rest of these guys, lighting off fireworks, Mark Obaninsky, who, it was an amazing night. It was a little bit of rain, but I'll tell you, it was really amazing. I've heard upwards of 400 people kind of hovering around at some point in time, and that there was a lot of people here. And people came up to me afterwards and were just really, really appreciative that the fireworks were back on. So it was a really, really popular night. You can get to it in your council reports. Then, November 3rd, Dr. Hal Weinberg, Spirit Park dedication and recognition. What an amazing day. The weather cooperated. It was a sunny day. There was probably about 50 to 60 people here. Again, thanks to all those that put that on. And it was a great way of recognition, a great person. And there were some great speeches. And it was really good to just connect with a lot of people that have moved out of the village that have come back in. So just wanted to recognize that. And then on a really, really sad note, I just wanted to extend my heartfelt sympathies to, in the last couple of weeks, we've lost a couple of people in the community that a lot of people would know, and that's Erica Mukel, who passed away, one of the real, sort of a frontier of this area with Herb. And that very instrumental in the creation of this community. And then Autumn Glowowski Mork passed away somewhat unexpectedly at 47 years old, and very, very sad. So those are my mayor's councillors report. Councillor Trowbridge.
I just wanted you to add Councillor Weverink, who was burning his face off along with you at the fireworks.
Oh, I know he'll get to.
And I also wanted to ask Carrie and Susan, how many cups of hot chocolate did you finally serve? Do you have a count?
We found because of the weather, it was actually difficult to get in the undercover area there. People were all kind of crowded in there, so you couldn't, it wasn't as accessible, so.
Do you remember a council member saying that putting that window in that spot might cause traffic problem?
Councillor Weberink, do you have anything to councillor reports?
So yeah, I enjoyed almost burning my face off doing the Halloween fireworks, and I enjoyed attending the Dr. Hal Weinberg Spirit Park dedication. You know, Hal was quite an enigma, and I think the most important historical figure in this community, particularly since most of us knew him. And I will be attending the Haven Connect Municipal Dinner tomorrow. I believe Mayor McEwen is going to that.
I can't.
Oh, you can, because you're in.
I'm in Ottawa. So.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so I'll be going by myself. And that's it.
No. Okay. Move on to Chief Administrative Officer's report. Ms. Elrock.
Thank you. So just a reminder to folks that utility bills have been mailed out and are due on November 22nd. So there's several ways that you can pay, available on our website, or pop into the Village Hall or give us a call if you're looking for payment options, or if you have not received your bill for some reason. And moving ahead, we've got a busy couple of months of events here. So we will be having Light Up the Season event on December 8th here at the Hub. And also look for details coming on our new Christmas tree decorating contest for the holidays. So we're going to be doing that for the first time this year, and perhaps council may want to decorate a tree as well. That's it for me, thanks.
Good, thank you. We've got a couple information items, some the Tri-City Healthier Communities Partnership meeting minutes, as well as email dated October 30th from the Ministry of Children and Family Development. Now open up to public question period.
I know to shape this in the form of a question, so I will say how wonderful it was, and I want to extend a big thank you to staff at the hall here and to Mayor and Council for allowing us to use the space on Saturday evening for our music trivia for Anmore Elementary PAC and First Anmore Scouts. I will have some totals about our fundraising efforts for that in the future, but I want to say it was an incredible evening, and how much, I guess is a question, we very much appreciated the opportunity to host it here, and staff were incredibly helpful, and many of them attended and played trivia with us as well, so thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I completely forgot about it. It was a very, very busy weekend. So yeah, there was about 100 people in here playing trivia. It was really good. I rocked it.
Through the chair, I'd like to ask a simple question. Who is our federal member of parliament representing the riding that includes Anmore? Federal minister, federal member of parliament representing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the answer.
Benito Zerillo.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Move second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.